You are now tuned to BS3 Network. BS3 Network, changing the way you listen to podcasts.
It's Queen 3 and King. It's Queen 3 and King. It's Queen 3 and King. Queen 3 and King, we the team, it's going down. We the talk of the town, it's going down. We royalty, wear our crowns, it's going down. Tune in now, it's going down. Queen 3 and King, we the team, it's going down. We the talk of the town, it's going down. We royalty, wear our crowns, it's going down. Tune in now, it's going down. It's Queen 3 and King on BS3 Network.
You feel the sauce. We're going to go and hit you with it a little bit more. That's that stuff that make you want to stank your legs, don't it? Even when your legs is clean. Where you at, Educator Queen? I can't hear you. You can't hear us. All right, unmute yourself, Mr. Pastor.
Bless up, man.
There you go.
Y'all hear me?
There you go.
Yes, sir.
We got you now. All right. Today's episode, Daddy Issues, with special guest Pastor Lynn Harper. I'm not even gonna get into why and what that's about. We'll talk about that on after introductions. We got which we'll go ahead and move into. First of all, we are live on Roku TV. Search BS3 TV. Download today. And then our website, bs3network.com, or our Roku channel, BS3 TV Live. Download it today so you can lay in the bed eating your Cheetos or Doritos with your ding-dongs and ho-hos or your hoe and watch the show. For our YouTube viewers, please click the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right, we'll start with introductions. We will go with the only queen that is present. Hopefully the baby queen and the seasoned queen will join us a little bit later, but if not, we got it. So let's start with the educator queen, also known as Meba, TT, and some other nicknames she don't want her mama to know. She is from East Garland, but has dalliances and what do they call it? What did Will and Jada call it? Entanglements, as far as Tulsa, Oklahoma. I know that's not that far, but that's as far as she could make it on a tank of gas. Talk to the people, educator queen.
Oh, hello, everyone.
I said educator queen, girl. That ain't true.
I'm an educated queen too, ain't I?
I said educator queen. What's the difference? Go ahead.
Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hey, sis.
All right. And the next we have the seasoned queen, also known as Darling Nikki, Coco, Boney Maroney, Skinny Minnie, the glamour herself. Talk to the people, queen.
And I'm gonna be have another grandbaby.
Oh wow! Really?
Yes.
Whoop. Children's is a blessing.
Mika, that was my same look.
Children's is a blessing. You know what I'm saying? Children's is a blessing.
Huh?
My bad. I didn't mean to laugh at that. That's my nephew, but if he was sitting right here, I said, boy, you couldn't bust a grape in a fruit factory with a fat lady on your back.
He told the mama that today that he waiting to get a girlfriend.
I don't blame him. Me too. Since I got a wife, I'm waiting to get a girlfriend. That's just jokes, baby. You know it. She's sitting in the bed watching, working right now. I am sorry. I'm just showing out for Pastor Harper, And speaking of, we got Pastor Lynn Harper here. Talk to the people, Pastor.
What it do, family? Glad to be back for my second round, hanging out with King 3 and Queens. It's a blessing, Queen 3 and King. It's a blessing to be here. Excited about it, man. Looking forward to the topic.
Yes, sir. And for those of you who don't know, Pastor Harper and I hit it off very well. We speak at the same men's conference year after
Oh,
year.
okay.
And, we just hit it off, just some real conversation. For those of you who know me, you know that realism is super, super important,
Mm-hmm.
and being grounded no matter how high. What the song say? No matter how high I get. So regardless, and real grounded, and he came real, so needless to say, we are connected in a supernatural way.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully before too long. It is my fault that we hadn't moved further down this road, but hopefully before too long he will be in the BS3 network family with his own podcast.
Oh, all right now.
And the devil told me don't help him because he's gonna come take over and win all the awards from me. But I can't listen to that devil. You good, Pastor?
Stop it. Teamwork make the dream work, baby.
Make the dream work, don't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So you want to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, because this topic is hot. So I'm gonna start with the season queen. And get some initial thoughts. What did you think of when you hear the phrase or words "daddy issues"?
Your daddy. Period.
Okay, that's it.
For me, it is because that's the first thing I thought of.
Okay, all right. In what sense?
And what sense? He wasn't there and present in our lives.
Okay, that's for real. All right, and you say it in whence. You was about to say whence, from whence he came. I never thought about the origin of that word, but maybe it is what sense makes whence. I don't know. I'm just kidding, but ain't nobody taking that as a joke. It's just a flub of the tongue. All right, Mika, daddy issues. What do you think of when you hear the phrase words daddy issues?
Now that I remember the topic.
You see what I'm talking about, Pastor? That's why I don't want to let your show go. Because she said, now that I remember the topic, and we 7 minutes into the show. What the hell?
She did that now.
Thank you, Lord. Because I told Alicia a while ago at her house, I don't even know what the topic is. But when I think of daddy issues, I think of a trickle-down effect.
Okay.
And how if a person has daddy issues, it can affect different relationships in their lives.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. Pastor, when I first shot the topic over to you, daddy issues, what came to mind?
Yeah. I when I hear daddy issues, man, for us as African Americans, I think of the foundational problem for most of our societal issues over the last 30, 40, 50 years. Most of the stuff that we see publicly that, has become a blight on our community, has become a pain that we deal with generationally. If you look at all the stats, the majority of them point back to daddy issues.
Wow. Yeah. So for me, I saw this video. I can't remember if it was on Facebook or YouTube video or whatever. And we'll play it here momentarily. This video resonated with me and the brothers that I'm kind of connected with. And so I'm like, we got to do a show on this because this is a real deal, And it just hit me probably yesterday that daddy issues was the topic. However, when we hear the term daddy issues, most of us think from a female perspective. We've all had the term, oh, she got daddy issues, right? Some jokers, Pastor, if we keeping it real, look for them with daddy issues, don't they?
Yeah.
Right.
Easy to manipulate, man.
Yeah. They look for them with daddy issues. But on today's show, we're going to talk about the daddy issues from a male perspective, which I don't know that I've ever heard, if you want to know the truth. So let's hit with that. And we'll start with you, Pastor, on this, and then we'll go to the educator queen and to the season queen. Do men have daddy issues?
Undoubtedly, man. If you look at the last 40 years from a social standpoint, right? You look at the family makeup, and you look at the idea that 70% of our young men plus have been raised in single parent led households, which the majority of those were female led. Only 10% of single family households are led by men. So of that 70%, 90% plus or so are led by females. Well, how do you not have daddy issues when you have a gaping hole in your life, when you got this wound that's coming from the absence? So most of the time, our daddy issues, we look at the feminine responses of those young men rather than the masculine absence, right? And that masculine absence, that masculine training, that masculine teaching and guidance is what would have dealt with many of those feminine responses. So there's no doubt that we have it, but it's a multi-layered, multi-generational issue that we're dealing with, Doc.
Right, no doubt about it. Well said, no doubt about it. Educator Queen, do men have daddy issues?
Yes, but I think for some men, for men in general, I should say, I think it's easier to mask than it is for women. So that's why I think we always go to, she has daddy issues. I've never really heard anybody say, oh, he got daddy issues.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier to mask when it comes to men, but I think they hurt more in the end.
Yeah.
With the daddy issues.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, that's a very good point. Tell me, why do you think they hurt more with the daddy issues?
Because it hasn't been identified. Because they've been labeled as angry or mad or something else.
Reclusive, they shut down. You don't want to talk. You don't, it hadn't been identified. So a lot of times they don't even know. They don't even know that what's causing what it's causing, Right. And so, there's a saying I heard, several years ago, and it says the confused mind does nothing. Yeah. If your mind is confused, it paralyzes you. That's it. Yeah. You don't move, So, it's like an undiagnosed illness, right? My right booty cheek hurt every day.
Boy.
And you don't know why. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on. Nikki, do men have daddy issues? You said yourself, you thought about you and your relationship with your dad.
Yeah.
So thinking about daddy issues from a male perspective, do men have daddy issues?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And
how you know?
Look at your some of your family members on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And how that are men, and that wasn't there for their children and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got you. So we see that, right? I think we have no shortage of them, and I proudly say that myself and Pastor Dawkins, I don't know if he's listening, watching tonight, but we made a vow, Pastor. This is my cousin on my dad's side and my mama's side, because my mama and his mama, which were cousins, married brothers, So my double cousin, we're both last name Dawkins, and we made a commitment to each other. We said we're changing the way you think of the name Dawkins will be differently than the way you think about it today.
Amen.
And when I say
amen,
it's gone that way, that conversation has produced at least 5 college graduates, at least 2 business owners and entrepreneurs who are bringing in over $1 million a year in revenue, at the very least, selling millions of homes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, so when I say that, yes, men have daddy issues, but what we're going to get into later is, why don't it affect everybody the same way? Because some people that drive you, and some people that draw you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So on you, Pastor, do men have daddy issues?
Yeah. So just kind of piggyback, and I pointed to the generational thing earlier, but I'm not pointing to it as an observer from the outside. This is a life that I live in my family. I called together about 30 members of my family last year, because I have been the sole patriarchal figure in our family for the last 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
In my family, those daddy issues have turned into generational incarceration, generational violence, generational families that have been kind of left to rear themselves. And so it shows up in many different ways. Not only do we have the issues, but the issues become cyclical. They repeat themselves over and over again. And so when I hear somebody like you saying about the idea of changing what the family name stands for, you know, that's what I stood up on 22 years ago when God called me out, was the idea that when somebody looks at Harper later on down the line, there's going to be another option other than the one that we have. There's going to be something, because we all have dealt with the same thing. My father had daddy issues. His twin brother had daddy issues after all the incarceration. Many of my brothers and cousins and uncles and nieces and nephews have all had daddy issues, if nothing else, from the absence or the lack of regular guidance, direction, all those things that a king does to protect, to provide, to nurture, to develop, right, to guide, to challenge, all those things that are there. When those things are missing, then incrementally it shows up in every individual across the board. And what it will do when you find yourself living into it generationally, where you've had multiple generations flop out, is now you'll have an entire feminized male. You have men.
You said something right there.
Who have a feminine spirit. And the feminization of our men. And here's the tough part: because of the absence of all of these men that had the men that had their own daddy issues that were absent, and now the new daddy issues that are there, most of the men that are in those spaces cannot see that they've been trained to only hear female voices. And so now their daddy issues are from an absence. And now when they actually go into the workplace and they find themselves in spaces where you have to be able to adjust and adapt to coaches and to others who are going to drive you, don't have that feminine voice, and that are going to be, you know, concerned with your feelings and your emotions, the majority of our men, their daddy issues show up there. And so it shows up in the inability to keep regular employment, the inability to follow long enough to be able to learn how to lead, all of these things. So the generational impact of it becomes a mushroom, man. And I'm dealing with it. I live with it in my family now personally. So this issue touches home, brother.
Wow. Let me just say this. There are shows from time to time that we put on that we have to go back and watch because there's so much meat in it. All right. So imagine feeding a baby a 8-ounce New York strip, and you only got an hour to feed him to him. That baby gonna have a hard time. Unless it was Shalina, she probably could have did it when she was a baby. But most of the time, what's up, cousin? So tell me this, Pastor, because you talked about the incarceration aspect, and I believe on the last show and at the last minutes conference, you said something about the number of hours of incarceration. I can't remember if you were talking about that within your family or within our community. Just talk about the hours of incarceration right quick.
Now, years, brother. So add them hours up and multiply.
Okay,
so in my family alone, over a 45-year period, over 2 generations, men have lost 1,000 years of sentenced prison time.
Do y'all hear that?
These are 50. These are 50-year sentences and 60-year sentences and 45-year sentences and some 15s and a lot of 10s and 12s and all of this. Very few that are small in nature, but the youngsters right now, I have unfortunately heartbreak. 2 of my nephews who came through my house who are both doing 50+ year bids for murder or conspiracy and connection and attempt to murder that go along with that. So when I tell you about multiplied violence, but each one of these young brothers were in my house because their father, whether it was my brother or my sister's, the father of her child, were absent in those moments in their lives. And a temporary fill-in was not enough. My presence was not enough. As much as I tried to give up my life and my family life, it wasn't enough. So that's just 2, and that's 100 years right there. But if you go back 40 years, we've got people in my family that have, you know, shot and maimed police officers, murdered others, and so they the rowdy Negro. These runaway slaves I'm talking about, y'all. These are not African Americans, y'all. These are niggas that there's a difference.
There's a
the
difference.
two died. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but with that has come now as a preacher on the other side, contemplating redemption, contemplating wholeness, contemplating putting lives back together, and really thinking about it not just from the surface things that show up as far as the fruit in their lives, but what's at the root of this chaos, this dysfunction, and this trauma. Fatherlessness, daddy issues are deeply rooted in the majority of my generational family issues, including those 1,000 years of time served, time that was given out, brother.
Yeah. So when I asked about that, I was just thinking to myself, knowing that I thought it was hours that he gave it, but now that he says that it was in years. So I'm thinking to myself, what percentage of those years are directly related to daddy issues?
Yeah.
90%, 95%, 99% of that time? How much directly correlates to daddy issues?
If you just look at, like, again, our social sciences measure everything, right? And so they go in, they do a lot of surveys on these people that are incarcerated. And so if I get outside of my family and just do it broadly, and they say that of the individuals that are incarcerated for violent crimes, drug addiction, drug selling, all of these things, again, these numbers are that over 80+% had a daddy issue, had an absent father that was included with that. Kids, obviously, that end up in foster care and end up in the system through CPS. Same thing, their numbers are skyrocketing. Kids, right? So all of these issues, if you want to be real, I don't know if I brought this up in our last show, but one of the last things that God said to the people before he shut up the canon and stopped speaking to them for 400 years was that when it was time for restoration, that he would send a prophet to restore the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers. That's the end of Malachi. That's after the bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, the one that we know most of us real good. But at the end of that, the last thing he says is that brokenness that was going to need a savior was going to get to the point to where you were going to have to repair the father wound, the daddy issue. This is biblical.
Yeah.
This one savior came on the scene.
Wow.
So,
Wow. I just think that figure, man, needs to be said as often as possible because it hits a little differently. When you hear the years associated with it in just one family, man. So we're going to get to some comments, but before we do, we're going to, the baby queen has joined the fray. So we're going to give her an opportunity to say a few words before we're going to turn it into the hands. See, I got to start talking like we at church, mother, because we got pastor on board. So we gonna turn it over to the hands of the baby queen, also known as Mama Lee, Lee. She was formerly known as Blake's mama. She is now firmly entrenched in the corner of Bronxy, which I'm sure she contemplates a role reversal on a daily basis. Talk to the people, Queen.
Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hope y'all are doing well. It is good to see everybody. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I see that Kay has lended you some of her edge control, and you have used it wisely.
Don't listen to him.
Edges are on fleek. Look like you waked, prayed, and slayed.
Whatever.
All right, Miss Producer, let's acknowledge our chat room and get a few of those comments. All right, we got Ben Sutter III, the gentleman who put the BS in BS3. He says, good evening, good to see y'all.
Hey, Ben.
Hello.
Okay, good to see you too, sir. We got Keisha Walker. I don't know why she changed her name. She must be on the run. She must be on paper. She must got a probation officer, a parole officer, a counselor, somebody looking for her because she changed her name every 30 days on Facebook for some reason. She goes, good evening, family. I would agree. A lot of men do have daddy issues. My baby brother is still suffering at 48. You hear that?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Do you hear that? See that last sentence is constructed in such a way that it gives you different insight. My baby brother is still suffering at 48.
Yeah.
I think I hear my sisters from time to time say, at your big age, you ought to be fill in the blank. All right. Ben says, yes, some of my favorite rappers have or had daddy issues because they weren't around. Yeah. Predictable, right? Predictable. And as a result, some of the content shows it. See, they say, when you hurt, see, it's two things that I've heard frequently. Mika can't react maturely when she hears this, but hurt people, number one, and they'll bleed all over you. You follow me? All right, Keisha also said, I promise I'm not trying to be funny. That's a lie. But our dad was not around, and my brother's the only boy. My mom did the very best she could, but somewhere along the way, she made him into a sorry man. He has a record longer than a set of saggy boobs. See what I'm saying? Unfortunately, our dad doesn't see how his absence had anything to do with it. That's key right there, too. Write that down, Miss Producer. Our dad doesn't see how his absence had anything to do with it. How many daddies do? Are they in denial?
My Lord.
Maybe they don't see how they had anything to do with it because they had daddy issues that went unidentified, untreated, and unseated.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Ben says Pastor Harper and A-Trap need to connect. That would be a dope episode. Yep, we can definitely make that happen. All right, we got kinfolk in the building. Jody Mack. I sure wish one day I'm gonna have to get his permission to give his nickname live on the air. But he says good evening. All right, we got Kevin West in the building. A motorcycle riding police officer right here. Hello. What's up, K-Dub? He says, what up, fam? And then Keisha says, our dad is a pastor and his thoughts are always, we need to go to God about any issues with him because God has forgiven him. He doesn't know of any of us as adults. It's heartbreaking. Wow. I want to go right there. This isn't even a place that I had planned to go. And I'm going to start with you, Pastor Harper. All apologies to the queens. But how can you build a relationship with your father, your heavenly father, if you have none with your daddy? Pastor Harper, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you can, but it's going to be a twisted relationship, and so most of us don't recognize, right, that when we come to God, we're coming. You said building a relationship with our heavenly Father. We're coming to be formed back into His image. That's what we saved for, right? We born in sin, we shaping in iniquity. But whatever our daddy did to us, whatever our family did to us, whatever our neighborhood did to us, all those things that shaped us, they have us malformed. But when I can't get his voice out of my head, when I can't get his issues out of my heart, then I can be coming to God and halfway receiving what he's saying because I still value a voice that I have now got healing and closure from. It took me forever to realize how much my daddy was still on the inside of me. As much as I was saying I was submitted to my father.
That's something right there too.
I was preaching it, Doc. I was talking it. I was saying I was submitted to my father, but my daddy's voice was still in my heart and my head. See, unlike some people, I didn't have the absence of my daddy. I had the presence of him training me wrong. I sold my first dope with my daddy putting it in my hand. I smoked my first weed at 2 years old, 3 years old, because he was selling dope, and all those things were normal. That's stuff. So boundaries were crossed and lines were drawn. That now later on, I'm supposed to be submitted to God. But my father, I'm made in his image, and I'm trying to decide between the two. And here's the problem with a pastor and a person that won't deal with that thing once you have grown. If there are developmental things that are supposed to be deposited into a young man as he is growing into who God designed him to be, and you are absent from putting those things in, you got to repent from that, Doc. And if you don't, that kid has to have enough heart to eventually forgive you in spite of the fact that you won't. And it's been a journey. I'm talking to y'all about some of my own pain, some of the things that I've had to deal with, because I had to get over the fact that my daddy was never going to say he was sorry. My daddy was never going to admit to the pain that he had caused. And I've had the bullet pulpit. I've been able to talk to him from the standpoint of even being in position as his pastor and talking about the multiplied effects, some of the same stuff that I'm talking about. And even though we can look at generational chaos that was set off from one person not being in place, because the pain is so heavy, it's hard for him to say, yeah, there were things that I could have done better. And I apologize. No, matter of fact, that man shot at me with a BB gun when I got too deep on him one more time. He told me to get the hell off the property. Now, hey, he wasn't going to shoot his real gun, but that big pulled out his BB gun with that airstrike. Bow, busted, and get you, hell. So, hey, I'm just telling you, he was a little rowdy because it's too much. It's too much when you can't see how to heal from your own wounds. It's too much to see how you're supposed to be able to help somebody else heal from theirs. So those hurting people. keep the cycle of hurting people going.
Yeah, man. And you find me at the intersection of laughter and tears, man, because it is so heavy, man. It is so heavy. And so, again, I'm just going to tell you like this. Me and Harper, we ain't the kind of people. Some of my best friends, we ain't the kind of people that's going to use no excuses like that. It's the truth, but I'm not, we ain't finna, so don't get it twisted. This is not an excuse forum. This is not a setup for jokers to go and use this as another form of manipulation in other relationships. Well, I didn't have my daddy, and I don't know. I didn't really mean to hit you, but I can't help it because I saw my daddy. This ain't that. No. So don't get it twisted. But when I say, like the vision that I'm getting, y'all Queens, just imagine Pastor Harper, Pastor Derek Smith, John, Andre Jones on a topic like this. You understand what I'm saying? Every time Pastor's on, there's a part two because there's so much depth to it. There's so much meat to it. We can't get it all off the bone. Kevin West says, I was a single parent raising boys, and my oldest still ended up going to prison last year. Wow. And I'm going to tell you like this. I sat and got a front row seat of Kevin West raising his boys. And I was there. I'm not just talking about we just saw each other at the church. I've been to the crib. I done been over there lending a hand to his raising. And it was inspired by the fact that he was raising his boys on his own. So I understood the struggle with that, So, hey, appreciate you, Brother West, man. Keisha said, please have a part two. That's it, Brother Preacher. He will not say, I'm sorry. I know I need to watch this episode again. I'm trying to stop crying. Can somebody please tell a joke? Hey, I'm telling you, I'm at the intersection of tears and laughter, man, because, that's just the way we built. But one of the things I was thinking about with Pastor Harper, because of what he went through, and he's telling more of his backstory, it was so necessary. But imagine how powerful he can be to the streets with his story. Right now, there's a relationship with the streets that some pastors just don't have because they done been saved their whole life. They've been preaching since they were 10. You follow me? So hey, I'm telling you right now, Pastor, you went through it for somebody else. Everything you went through didn't have anything to do with you. Some of it had to do with you got to go through this because I need to put something in you that allows you to relate and to be able to address an issue. If that thorn had not been in your side, you can't tell how it hurt, it hurt.
Yeah.
Come on.
I 100% agree with you. Can I honestly, the podcast that I'm talking about jumping off is only to feed the ministry that God has called me to. So what you just said a minute ago, the idea that we ain't the one to make excuses, it's this time out for excuses, but you're only going to have excuses if you don't have understanding. If you don't actually understand the way you were built, then you don't understand what you need for your rebuild. And what I realized is that we were so busy hiding it and holding it and showing it in anger and responding to it. Most of our time in trauma is built responding to it. I said something during the men's conference that you stuck on. I said, we very rarely get an opportunity to process from peace, right? The idea that I'm going to grow from a peaceful space, a healed space, a space that's no longer hurt, angry, and mad and bitter at my daddy. Now I can actually contemplate what God desired to do with me when he designed me perfectly from the beginning. I want to help young brothers that have gotten lost in their way find that. I want to help develop an unchained brotherhood. That's the name of my men's ministry that I want to launch. So this is the other side of it. But you got to tell some truth. You got to sit in some hard realities. You got to mourn a little bit. One of the things I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's my stick, and I hope I ain't taking too much time, Doc.
No, that's what you cannot, man.
You cannot mourn what you do not measure, and you cannot move what you do not mourn. And so because we are not measuring correctly the brokenness that has happened to our people and how it has actually affected them from a mental, spiritual, emotional, social development standpoint, all of the above, and put those together, then I can't mourn it properly because I'm just looking at them like, Negro, you need to grow up. You 48 years old, you 52 years old, you 30-something years old, you 28, whatever that age is. We think because he's that big age, you need to move on. But because he does not understand what's going on with him, he ain't measured it himself. So he ain't going to be able to mourn it, and he ain't going to be able to move it. And somebody's got to walk you through that journey to help you see yourself clearly so you can regain the full image of God that's supposed to be walking in power. And if we tell young brothers that what they're missing out on is not what we're taking from them in this idea of holding this right, restricting you from the things that you want, but rather that I'm going to help you restore the strength and the power you were meant to walk in, it's a whole bunch of brothers. I'm already talking to them in barbershops and on blocks, Doc, who can receive that message. And I want to expand that as large as I can, because most churches, most pastors, most preachers, as you said, they can't see that. They have a corrective lens rather than an empowering lens. And when you're dealing with a people that didn't have something put in them, they don't need correction. They need training. They need development. They need growth. They don't need you just riding down on them because they didn't already felt the guilt. They didn't already sat in that, and they had to get rid of the shame just to survive, Doc. So in this space, they need instruction. They need direction. They need guidance, and they need a mercy and a grace that God gave me, so that I can turn around and give that to them as well on an equal footing.
Wow, man. And he said, if you don't understand how you were built, you don't know how to be rebuilt.
No.
Lily, you can relate to this, right? You had a water damage. Some stuff had to be torn out. Guess what? Long before that, we knew a contractor is going to need to see how this was built. So we're going to take some before pictures, some during pictures, and some after pictures so he can understand, okay, now I understand how this was built so I can rebuild it properly. And guess what? When he rebuilt it, not only did he rebuild it properly, he rebuilt it better. You understand? So some practical application. Ladies, y'all have anything that y'all wanted to add about that, the relationship with God, or comment on anything that Pastor Harper said?
I don't know what to say.
Thank you. It's like Tyson.
I don't have anything to say to add to that.
I feel like Trevor Burbick when Mike Tyson knocked him out. He's look at here. He's slobbing. He peed on himself. He farted. It hurt. Hey, it's just strong. Yeah, didn't she? It's just strong, man. I mean, I'm taking notes on it, man. He talked about, my dad is still inside of me. I'm trying to get it out. I don't even understand that, and as much as I want to deny it, I ain't like that nigga. I'm just like that nigga. Right. Yeah.
Sure is.
It's like you
ain't like that nigga.
Anger. And then I have, men that even built to say I'm sorry. Man, it's so much, man. It is so much. You really need to have time to absorb it, man. Okay, let's just hit this one. And let's start with the season queen, and I want you to give, just your perspective on this and whatnot. Does the type of relationship boys have with their father affect the kind of fathers they are?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you think that's the case? Because
I've had a lot of guys that came, well, as well as I was dating and stuff, that men that came across, they had a whole lot of daddy issues. And they got, I didn't, you have to know how to I didn't know how to do that,
navigate.
Navigate it, because it was just too much.
Lily, does the type of relationship boys have with their father affect the kind of fathers they are?
Absolutely. And I can just talk from a standpoint of watching Brandon.
You know what? If you didn't, I was gonna go there, because knowing his daddy, and what his daddy did, and how his daddy moved and operate. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
Absolutely. Just seeing him with the boys, it gives me a appreciation for his dad, because just a different level of appreciation for his dad because of how active he is, how engaged he is with the boys. His dad is still like that with Brandon today.
It's the heart of gold, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's still like that with him today, and will do anything, will give his last for his children.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that every day in Brandon. That's like one of the biggest things that I always tell him. I'm like, I probably don't say it enough, but just the way he shows up for the kids every day.
Yeah.
It's just a blessing to have.
You make sure you remember that when you're showing out, how he show up. Negro. Okay. Educated queen. Does the type of relationship boys have with their father affect the kind of fathers they are?
Yeah, it can be positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
I know several men who do not have their fathers.
I know you do.
Tig.
I know you do know several men.
Hold it, Mika. Hold it.
Oh, thank you.
You hear Pastor? Pastor must have missed this. He goes, I know several men. And I just said, I know you do. Go ahead.
Don't do my sister.
Baby, I will. Keep on. But I know several men who do not have fathers in their life, but they use that as inspiration to be a better father or into the, children that they're having. So they want it to be the opposite of what they were raised with. And then you have some men that's, they don't know what to do. So it's a continuous cycle that is bleeding down to the next generation of, and they're clueless. So yeah, it can be positive or negative.
Yeah. And before I turn this over to Pastor Harper, because we've kind of answered this question a little bit along the way. We all knew the answer to it, but I'm just going to jump in right here just because Mika said something that kind of triggered for me is that I was motivated to be a good dad. I really was, because of what I experienced and what in the hurt I felt and had later identified. But here's the deal, and check me out on this, Hart. I had the greatest intentions. I was there, but I wasn't always there right. See, none of my kids can say, nigga, you wasn't there. They can't say that. They may be able to say you were there. You didn't do it quite right. You made mistakes. And I did, but I promise you, I was there and I gave as much effort as I possibly could from that motivation of what I got or didn't get, if that makes any sense. So,
no.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So I want you to go ahead and take over from there and add whatever we need to add on this aspect of this conversation.
Yeah. So I love that the educated queen just said it can be good or bad, right? We just watched a public annihilation over the last year between Kendrick and Drake, right? And one of Drake's songs, because he is in my playlist, in spite of all of that. I may be a bigger Kendrick fan, but Drake is in my playlist. One of his songs is called Losses. And in the song Losses, he's talking to his father. He said, like, I'm trying to show you the waves. This is no cap. You sold me up the river, but I rode back. You put me on the road without a road map. I'm not trying to make a song. These are cold facts.
Wow.
That is what the absence of a father will do. It is being on a road without a road map, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm a pastor. So here go to the Bible side of it, right? The Bible says, "Blessed is the man whose quiver is full," right? So a quiver holds arrows. Arrows are weapons. The man's quiver is full, but the man has the responsibility not only of holding the arrows and the weapons, but of pointing them in the accurate direction so that they can actually hit a bullseye. When you have a man that is absent, then you have a wandering weapon that has been set loose in the world. Many of our men have been known for doing generational damage, you guys, because they are weapons created by God to have massive impact. But because that father was not in place and did not know how to guide and direct and show that joker how to go straight, then you left me on the road without a road map. And so because of that, now I take that power and I manipulate women, or I even manipulate my family or my kids. My father had a syndrome where his dad was a dominant authoritarian. So he was waiting for his chance to be in the position that his father was once in. He didn't see it as in, I'm going to be different the next generation, and I'm going to make sure there's something else different for my kid. He was saying, no, now I'm the leader, and I get to lead like my daddy led.
Yeah, man. God, dog, that's do not miss that one right there, man.
Yeah.
God, dog, you're not even interested in leading in the right way. It's my turn to take over now, and I'm gonna do it with the same bravado and machismo.
Right. And the Bible shows us this over and over again with the difference of the difference between the wicked king and the righteous king. The truth is, we're all wicked internally, y'all. So I ain't trying to make myself out to be no better than my daddy because I got him in me. I've had to. My wife been pointing out for years. I finally had to do my own dirty work to look internally to see where that residue was very real. But if you leave somebody on a road without a roadmap, you cannot expect them to end up at their destination. And we got a whole bunch of folks that's out here. The Bible says in the highways and the hedges, when you don't have a roadmap and you don't know where you're going, you get stuck on the side of the road, y'all. Mm-hmm. And some of our brothers have been written off because of how violent their tendencies are, because of how angry their attitude is, because of how disengaged spirit can be. But the truth, man, is there simply individuals who wandered off the road because they had no roadmap. And so the future of dealing with daddy issues, because one of the other issues, as you talked about, Brother Kevin, earlier, and the idea that he raised his family, he was doing here. But because now we have fatherlessness issues, daddy issues multiplied, it's more normal. Kids actually, I still lead kids today, and they'll think it's crazy both his mama and his daddy at home. Kid be like, dang, your daddy at home? Yeah. Think about that. Yeah, like those are conversations that are really had between kids who have lived in a normalized space where it's normal to be raised simply with the matriarchal voice. Them daddy issues have multiplied, y'all, and they are now embedded in what we call culture. And so there's some roadmaps that need to be put out. We need to help you to understand how to get back on your path. Because other than that, right now, we seeing kids popping off, murdering each other in the street, all of this because somebody put them on the road, but they never gave them a road.
Wow. And so, as he was saying that, I just thought to myself, imagine if we were trying to get somewhere nowadays that we weren't familiar, a destination that we weren't familiar with. We just not heard about this destination, but we ain't got a GPS to get there. Imagine how paralyzed we would be. And then he said they are weapons. Well, guess what? They've been weaponized. Mr. Wallace done successfully weaponized them. You can have a weapon, but it hadn't been activated. They have successfully activated that weapon. Let's get a couple of comments, and then we will play the video. We didn't even play the video that inspired this topic, and I want to address this video last, as we wrap this one up. So Keisha says, the more I listen to this, I'm seeing I still have some old wounds I was thinking I hadn't moved past. That clearly I haven't. We've all seen our mother go through so much with our dad, haven't we? So I know my brother is damaged. We all are. Thanks for this show, Brother Pastor Harper, Queens and King. Most definitely. It was obvious that it was going to be what it was. So now, we got Nene. What's going on, my neighbor? Go hug Courtney right now. Go hug him. You know he need a hug. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in, man. Okay. Okay, got you. We're gonna lose past at 8. So let's pay this video, and then we'll get his comment on this one here.
You admittedly were sleeping with.
There's a talk I give on the 5 biggest challenges.
You admittedly were sleeping with multiple men. So you just said, you know what? I'm fanning out and I'm telling everybody I was having sex with, you could potentially be my son's biological father.
This man has spent 22 years searching for his father, and today he was ready to give up. But Judge Lauren wasn't about to let that happen.
When your mom told you he could potentially be your biological father, when was this? How did she tell you?
Last night. It's all so much just like built up. It's just like sometimes I just don't feel like I'm not as good as everybody else because they all got dads.
Don't ever feel like
break
that.
Break my heart. Don't you ever feel like that. Do you hear me? Don't you ever feel like that. You are worth it. You are just as good. That's why we're here for you, because you are important and worth it. And whether we get the answer today or not, you still are worth it.
Man. He said, I don't feel like I'm as good as everybody else because they all got dads. Harper, you got a little less than 10 minutes before you got to get out of here. So go ahead and give us that, man, and we'll cut you loose.
Yes. So me and my wife have been having some very tough conversations over the last 6 months or so, right? Because one of the things I was trying to get her to see is that she has been trained to see through a feminine eye. With the absence of her own father and the absence of patriarchal leaders for multiple generations on her side, no different than on my side. The absence of the voice means that there's no value for the voice, right? And so it's not just that it's absent, it's that we don't actually understand the hurt that's caused by decisions like the one this mama made. Her and I have kind of talked through this thing, and as we were communicating, I was trying to get her to see, because she asked me a question one time. She said, you don't think that your father is still determining some of the decisions that you make, that he's still in there? I said, yes. I said, but that's not the problem. I said, I do recognize that. I'm working on that part, right? I said, but the issue that I see is that often most women cannot see a negative impact for these female voices that have determined mindsets that are toxic. And when you don't see your mindset is toxic, then because the thing that we're looking at is the absence of the father. The thing that we're looking at is all these different dads that are gone, but we don't actually measure the same input that the mindset of that female has on that young man in diminishing the lack of build up in who he's supposed to be and what a man is supposed to be. When we were coming up, and this is some of the things that sparked it. When we were coming up, there was always this idea that you're too militant for your kids. But Corey Holcomb, I loved it. He had a meme today, and he said, Tiger Woods' daddy instructed him on exactly what to do. And today he put in the hours, he did the hard work. It was very militant. Today he ended up being one of the best golfers that ever lived. He turned around and he talked about Serena and Venus. He turned around and he talked about Michael Jackson. He turned around and he talked about all these people whose people pushed them, directed them, sometimes even militant, because sometimes that's the father spirit. That ain't the mother spirit, but that is a father spirit. The same way a mother's supposed to nurture and make sure that the heart is well, and make sure that you have some emotional intelligence and all that on the other side, so that there's balance. That father is supposed to drive. When you have the absence of fathers that is consistent, then mothers will then undervalue the voice that is missing and not recognize that that is a part that God designed to be in that child's life. And a bunch of these daddy issues are not just because fathers were missing, but because mothers were dismissive of the fact that fathers were missing. And we've convinced ourselves we can raise them on our own and we can do it. We don't need no man and all this other stuff that is popular jargon today in our so-called culture that's really toxic to any rebuilding, restoration, and reformation of our family. So for us to solve daddy issues, it's to take men and women admitting that their absence and their presence have caused some toxic responses to our kids. And we need to be humble enough to bow at the altar and the throne of God and recognize he's the only point of rebuilding. Your way ain't right, my way ain't right, God's way is right. And we need to go back to the manufacturer. Just was flooding, you got to go back to the manufacturer and to the specs and to the drawings, and you got to build it back to code. God is the code. We done got lost on it. It ain't a man or a woman. Both of them can have daddy issues.
Wow, man. That's all I can say, man. You want to talk about taking a topic? He did to this topic what I used to do to honey buns. I killed him. So, which is why he's here. And when I say I got so many notes for part 2, man, it's just not even funny. But when that kid said, I didn't think I was as good as everybody else because they all have dads. And I'm going to tell you right now, what kid wouldn't want to go bowling? What kid wouldn't want to go shoot fireworks? What kid wouldn't want to go to the arcade? What kid wouldn't want to go to the movies when they had an opportunity? This kid, because I was always the fifth wheel between my cousins and their dad. Yeah. And I was always the fifth wheel and I didn't have my dad. So whenever one day happened and they said, hey, is it all right if Ted, that's my nickname, if Ted go with us to shoot fireworks? It was a 4th of July. And my mama said, no, he don't need to. You need to come and take his butt home. I didn't argue. I didn't pout. I didn't say, oh man, it didn't mean I was good. She basically rescued me and didn't even know she was rescuing me. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? I didn't complain because I was tired of being the fifth wheel. And I didn't even know it. I didn't even know then that was the case until I got older, doing some work and reflected back on that. So when he says, I didn't think I was as good as everybody else because they all had dads. Pastor, your final thoughts, man, and then we're going to get you out of here.
My final thoughts is that God is still a healer. This is and we dealt with the black man, black woman relationship today, but to really deal with this thing and the breakdown of the black man, you've got to go back 405 years. And you have to begin to look at the systematic onslaught that has been coming toward us to make our men more feminine, to take away authority and power, because the Bible says when you remove the strong man, then the enemy has an easier path to destroy the family, destroy the house. And so we have to begin to see this. I got excitement in the background. They on the seesaw. Some of us remember that. We can be on the seesaw. Sure. But we have to recognize that we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, rulers of darkness in wicked places.
Confirmation.
So
that's the word.
Confirmation.
When we see the young man that is wayward because of his fatherless and daddy issues, when we see that young woman that is off in the way she's raising her son, we got to recognize how much our people can't see. And we got to walk with a different type of grace, because if we truly going to do this, it's going to call for us learning to love ourselves and love people unconditionally, because that's how God did it. But the rebuild is possible, and I'm just excited about the future with what God is telling me I'm supposed to be doing, finally getting me off the plantation theologically and in all these other spaces and really seeing this is what he shaped me for in the beginning. This is why my path had to go this way. This is why I had to experience it and feel it before I could understand it and hopefully give somebody that direction and that roadmap that they didn't have when they were younger. So
wow.
God bless y'all, man.
Hey, before I sign you off, let me just say this. Your love offering is coming as soon as I get off there. Number 2, them naked and afraid woods back there behind you, man. Be careful. You understand? I don't want to see you.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm a fan of naked and afraid. First off, yeah, hey, but I'm an outdoorsman, brother. So I want to teach our young. I want to get them out their comfort zones. I want to take some young brothers out in the woods. But we gonna get from me before it get too dark. Me and my daughter, she done finished taking her graduation pictures.
All right, hey, love you, man. Love you. We appreciate it, man.
Love you, brother. Thank y'all for having me, King and 3 Queens. Peace and blessings.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
That's a lot. Because that last thing that he was talking about, I know it wasn't about girls, but it hit me differently.
Yeah, that's part of it. And it's so difficult. What I was thinking is, it's so hard and it's so unfair, but it's so true.
Yeah.
As mama's doing the best they possibly can with what they got. And it's so hard to be critical of the impact that their rearing had on boys. It's so unfair. But in order to heal, you got to get out of your comfort zone. A wise man once said, until you become uncomfortable, you can't become comfortable. You must first become uncomfortable to become comfortable. If you're trying to lose weight, you got to do some uncomfortable shit. If you're trying to buy a new house, you got to do some uncomfortable shit.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Until you become uncomfortable, you cannot become comfortable. So it's a hard conversation, and all apologies and all due respect to the mothers and the women that were trying to raise their boys the best they know how.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some deficiencies that exist, and we can't run away from that. It's just the way that it is. So until we get comfortable in that and being able to talk to each other, say, like, I'm not trying to demean you. I'm not trying to bash you. I'm not attacking you. I'm just talking about what we have in front of us now as a culture. So we got to be okay with it. That's why we can't heal from whatever this is, right? Same thing when it comes to racism and all the stuff we've experienced over the years. Are we really worrying too much about how the fuck they see it? Shouldn't we be iron sharpening iron? Shouldn't we just be, okay, y'all, let's deal with this so we can move forward, so this ain't handicapping us no more? You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
You know. So anyway, let's do final thoughts, and let's start with the season, Queen.
I know that this was mostly about boys, but it affected me in a different way. And that was because our dad wasn't there. And I'm still processing it. Even though I have prayed about it even before he passed away. But God gave me an opportunity to tell him, my dad, how I felt by me taking him to the doctor offices and stuff, and all of those appointments he had to go to. And I could, whenever I would ask him a question, I would know if he was telling the truth or if he was telling a lie. And I told him that. I called him on it. And that's just that. But that just came to me, again.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. What you were doing toward the end of his life when he was going through his cancer treatments and getting him to his appointments and all that other kind of stuff, let me just give you a little relief, because that was an exercise in grace and forgiveness and mercy. You were doing what the Lord would have had you to do, So utilize that as the ointment to some of your wounds, because again, even though you may not have emotionally or mentally flushed it out, your actions, which speak louder than words, your actions were an exercise in grace, forgiveness, mercy. Okay. And like Kevin West said, Brother West, K-Dub says, bless you, sister.
Thank you.
All right. Educator Queen, final thoughts.
Again, I think a powerful topic. Still so much. I don't even think we touched the surface, with this topic. But one thing that really stood out that the pastor said was the generations and the people that can be affected when one person in the household is out of place is crazy to me.
Ooh, that's deep right there. One person out of place.
One person.
The ripple effect
that it has not only on that generation but the following generations is crazy. And I mean, it's work to be done, and you don't know where to start, but it has to start.
That's good. Well said.
So what I have one question. Yeah. What can we ourselves for this podcast help with boys and girls that need an outlet?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a situation where we got to talk about it more. Number one, is the biggest key to me. But I do something that I encourage all BS3 Network show hosts to do, all BS3 Network producers to do, is offer the forum to these young kids. You know, in fact, I have a show set up and ready to go. It's just the framework of it called. It's Friday night. Let me just check this because this is important enough to me. Let me see if I have it. I don't show it right now, but there's Friday Night Live. Okay, is what it's called, Friday Night Live, and it's ready for anybody to come do it. You know, so if they have it, there's a slot that's ready to go, and we would make room on this show. You know, so I think we just got to be able to identify the youth that can be impactful and powerful, and give them the forum. You know, but the easiest thing and the most consistent thing we can do is talk about it more. You know, that may become our niche. You know, if it comes down to it, you know, we're open to it. So, I agree because you know, like he said, you know, to piggyback off Mika stuff, she talked about generations, and even himself, who has such a solid grasp of the situation, is still learning on a day-to-day basis how much of his daddy he got in him. Mm-hmm. You know, so when it comes to that, if that's the case, well, how much does his daddy have his pawpaw in him, and his daddy in him, right? You know, and he says, you know, he's the thing about just stop looking for sorry. You know, he's like, I had to come to the realization, then they ain't gonna never tell me I'm sorry. So am I gonna let that pigeonhole me? Am I gonna let that paralyze me? Am I gonna let that place me? Okay. Am I gonna let that pause me? Okay. So it's a lot to be discussed and a lot to unpack, you know, to say the least, you know, just because there's some angles to it that I have never thought about. Baby Queen, final thoughts.
Yeah, this is a great topic. A lot to process from it. But I think that it would be wise for us to just discuss this not only from the male point of view, but from a female point of view too, with mothers and motherless daughters, or you know, whatever the case may be. So I think that this is one that I would like to see a panel of men, like you named 4 men, that I feel like would be powerful in talking about this. But just a really good topic. It's funny that we are talking about this because a close friend and I were talking this week about how so many adults are walking around unhinged is the word we use. Unhinged. And it can be a you know, all types of things that are impacting that. But some of these people that I think of, they don't have fathers. So is that the angle that we can attack of why they're going through what they're going through? So it's just so much to think about with this topic and so many different angles you can go. Like I said, there's so many different places you can go. So I look forward to digging in a little bit more with this one. Yeah,
the unhinged connects directly to what he was talking about when he said we were created as weapons, you know, in the kingdom, in the army of the Lord, right? But those weapons are being misused. Think about the movie plots that came up with this great invention that can be used as a weapon. We need to get a control of it before it gets into the wrong hands. Well, these weapons have gotten into the wrong hands, and they've been weaponized. I'm gonna tell you, like they say at the end of an argument, when they tired of talking, I ain't got nothing else to say.
Bro, bring the hook in. Queen 3 and King, we the team, it's going down. We the talk of the town, it's going down. We royalty, wear our crowns, it's going down. Tune in now, it's going down, it's going down. We just hit you with another one. It's going down, we just hit you with another one. It's going down, we just hit you with another one. Tune in now, we just hit you with another one. It's Queen 3 and King. 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 On BS3 Network. Queen 3 and King. BS3 Network. Queen 3 and King. On BS3 Network. Queen 3 and King.
BS3 Network. Changing the way